Final Fantasy VIII is a game that's near and dear to my heart. I still remember that day in the game store begging my mother to buy it for me. In some ways, playing this game helped shape the man I became and who I am today. My favourite point in each playthrough was venturing through the Great Salt Lake on our way to Esther. The scenery, ambience, combined with that unforgettable soundtrack is something I look forward to every time I play. Ever since that first playthrough, I've had a soft spot for salt flats, both in games and real life. Sounds great, Wyrm, but I thought this was an FF14 video. The reason I bring all this up is because we have one such region in FF14. The Burn is a large salted wasteland that we first encountered in Stormblood, and it's a place that's captured my imagination since I first saw it. I've resolved to study the subject of the Burn in full detail, both for your benefit, but also my own. There are many places like the Burn that are added to the game, and have little pieces of lore added to them over the years. As a result, it's easy to forget some of these facts as the years go on. The Burn is located on the west of the continent of Othard, serving as a land border with the continent of Ilsabard. In terms of scale, the region is quite vast. If you compare the Burn to the realm of Eorzea, it's twice the size of the island of Valbrand, and larger than the entirety of Thanalan. To the northwest of the Burn lies the Knowing Sea, which completes the continental divide with Ilsabard. Expanding across its entire southern border is the Scate Range, a series of mountains that separate the Burn from the kingdom of Dalmasca. North you have the Azim Steppe and Nama Desert, separated by another mountain range. And to the east lies the Fanged Crescent, a region we don't know much about, except that it consists of yet another mountain range, and separates the Burn from Yanxia. The Burn does have one land route to the southeast, which leads to the nation of Nagxia, which in contrast to the Burn has a subtropical climate consisting of swamps and dense jungles. When it comes to flora and fauna, the Burn is completely lacking the former, and consists of a few familiar species we have seen on our travels, ones that could adapt to such an environment. Scalekin like the Kukulkan are the only airborne creature we see in the Burn. Elementals like the Druva and Soulkin like the Golems and Koblins are best suited for such an environment, but even then, the area's extreme lack of Aether makes their existence precarious. The only beastkin we see in the Burn is the Desmon, a species of mole that appears to have adapted earthen features to survive. Given moles are known to survive by eating earthworms, it's likely these ones survive by hunting down worm larvae. This brings us neatly along to the Vilekin, which are the most dangerous creatures in the Burn. The most common sight are the gigaworms, which burrow and live far below the sands, and are shown to grow to truly ridiculous sizes, such as with the first worm. This brings us to the gigaworm stalkers, antlions which by their name likely serve as predator to the worms. Both the stalkers and gigaworms vibrate their bodies at high speed, so they can easily sink into the sands, making them ideal life forms for such an environment. Hedetet is another Vilekin, which has adapted crystalline features to its body, and feeds on Aether from crystals to survive. The Garleans have even been known to use them as war beasts, and they likely take them from the Burn. Those are the creatures natural to this environment. As for the unnatural ones, the Allagan runes are filled with the Forgekin we come to expect in any Allagan facility. And then of course you have the Mist Dragon, a former child of Bahamut and Tiamat, altered by the Allagans like so many others. It's likely been wandering the waste for thousands of years, its unique nature allowing it to survive. Given the current state of this region, it's hard to picture what it looked like originally. We can surmise, however, based on the surrounding lands, that the Burn was once a lush area that supported life, and this has been supported by historical evidence. Long before we ever ventured into its wastes, we had heard the tales of the Burn and how it inspired the Garian Empire's campaigns of conquest. This is the tale passed down to the peoples of every region the Empire subjugated. When the Empire was taking its first steps, they encountered the region known as the Burn. As Emperor Stolas bore witness to this wasteland, said to have been bled dry of Aether by repeated primal summonings, he issued a policy to end these practices. This was to be the pretext the Empire would give for its ceaseless expansion of territory. Of course, this was after the Garleans conquered the lands between, which Hien pointed out in parley on the front lines.
If I may, the answer can be found in the Imperial doctrine they took great pains to impart to my people. Recognizing the threat icons posed the world, Solus Zos Galvus decreed that they were to be eradicated. To this end, he began a campaign to unite all lands under the Garlean banner. Or so we were taught. Yet the Emperor only reached the burn, the barren said to have been laid waste by icons, after conquering all the lands that lay between. What is more, I am quite certain the practice of summoning was not nearly so widespread in the days before the Empire's founding.
That's the simple version as we know it. The full tale, however, is far more detailed. In the first few years after Solus Galvus, aka Emmet Selk, ascended the Garian Throne, he attended a certain celebration. There, he made the following proclamation. "No lands must remain beyond our grasp. Go forth, conquer, rule." The celebration was for the beginning of the first Far Eastern campaign, where 3 Garian Legions was marched forth to conquer new lands for the Empire. One of these legions was tasked with conquering Nagsia, but in order to get there they needed to pass through the burn, which looked the same as it does today. A modern Garian airship can fly over the burn with no issue, but Magitech airships back then were far more mechanically intricate, with many moving parts exposed to the elements, and thus were prone to failure in harsh environments. As such, they could not successfully fly over the burn. Emperor Solus instead had them venture by land on multi-legged war machina. These machines, however, proved just as unsuited to the task, with sand and salt quickly clogging up their gears and grinding them to a halt. Sir, this isn't working out. Maybe we should stop. No. Forward. Why don't we follow the other legions through Dalmasca? Then we can march east to Nagsia. No. Keep going. Do it. By this point, the Garlean soldiers were fed up.
They ain't paying us enough for this, man.
But all would now be in agreement that Attack on the Clones is their new favourite Star Wars movie.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Emperor Solus, however, was not fazed in the slightest, but his entire campaign was...
It's all part of the plan.
When they got far enough, he would have them begin their retreat. As the story goes, fierce windstorms kicked up as they marched back, and the Legion took refuge in a cave network. Inside, they discovered ancient ruins, which were Allagan in origin. And wouldn't you know it, but Emperor Solus was the one who ordered them to take shelter in that area.
Part of the plan.
In here. Why here, sir? The plot demands it. Now do it. While within these ruins, they came upon the truth of the burn. It was they who originally inhabited these ruins that created this wasteland. The land being bled dry of Aether via the summoning of godlike iconic beings time and time again. Emperor Solus suspended the Far Eastern campaign, and issued the now infamous decree. The summoned icons are a blight upon the star, and must be destroyed without exception. Alright. Let's go back through the history books and piece together exactly what the burn is. Thousands of years ago, the Allagan Empire were the first in recorded history to have any connection to the region now called the Burn. I say this because we have zero access to historic records from nations nearby on the subject, though chances are high it was inhabited by peoples of some form, which folklore from neighbouring lands may allude to. While we don't know why the Allagans were there originally, we do know one of the end results of their stay. They used their technology to carve out large sections of landmass from this region and levitated them into the sky. Take note of the series of craters on the map. These are the rifts left by this process. These floating landmasses would make up the first islands of the floating continent known as Aziz La, the infamous research facility where Allah conducted advanced scientific works. While documentation of this event likely exists in, say, the Crystal Tower, they are beyond our reach. The Zayla tribes of the Azam Steppe, however, have passed the tale down for generations.
In the distant past, when all seemed doomed, a wayfaring soul came unto the steppe. Venturing into the northern crag, he received of Nama a sliver of her essence, a shard of the shining moon, and with it clove the tainted land from the earth. The end thus averted, to these fields did the wayfaring soul return, and venturing once more into the northern crag, he buried the shard, and made unto the heavens an offering of blood.
The northern crag the tale refers to is the House of the Crooked Coin to the north of the steppe, where an elegant artifact can be found. Y'shtola quickly surmised that the Elegants used this artifact to stem the flow of Aether from the steppe to the burn, causing it to become the wasteland it is today. She also theorized that this process is what allowed them to untether the land that would become Azizla from the earth itself. It's not clear why the Elegants were drawn to this region. Given its distance from the Empire's homeland in Eldenard, it's probable they selected this area so as not to have any side effects impact the Empire's core homeland in what is now Eorzea. And we do know their influence stretched far beyond this region, having gained control over lands in the Far East and left behind a few constructs. Above ground, all you can see is a bleached wasteland with outlines of cliffs and rivers that once ran through it. The most notable feature that comes to mind whenever someone mentions the burn is the colossal sized gigawyrm labelled the First Wyrm. Despite its name, it's likely not some sort of worm progenitor, rather a nickname given its scale. How it grew to such a size is unknown as well, but I would not discount it being an elegant chimera, spiced with another creature's DNA using chimeral biology to exacerbate its growth. Another major standout is the landscape is littered with leftover elegant structures and technology, many of which bear a striking resemblance to the technology used in Azizla. For example, the field generators we later used to erect the barrier across the length of the burn. Below the surface is a vast network of elegant facilities. What we don't know, however, is what function they served. Let's explore the underground facility we encountered in more detail. When we first entered the facility, we take note of the Imperial Mineshaft, meaning the Garleans had once been here as well, though it likely isn't the same facility they first ventured into all those years before. And wouldn't you know it, they left all the doors open, letting the elements in.
Close the oven door!
Most of the corridors have been blocked off by cave-ins, and others were destroyed entirely, likely due to the burrowing of giant gigawyrms which can be seen inside the facility. The drones we encounter, aside from atypical guard units, suggest we have entered a subterranean tunnel network, and this portion was meant for the expansion of such tunnels, as seen with the drones under the control of the excavatory nodes. Said drones are equipped more for digging than combat. There is not much else to explore due to the number of blocked access tunnels. However, the design of the facility, combined with the artwork we have access to, suggests that below the burn is a vast array of underground facilities and ruins, all connected via a high-speed tunnel network. I'd go so far as to theorize that gigawyrms were once native to this region, and the Elegants utilized their tunnels when first constructing their facilities. As fascinating as this is, it doesn't explain the truth of the burn itself, nor did we see any evidence to suggest summonings or anything similar to the Garian tales. To learn the truth, we must look outside the burn, and the tales of the tribes of the Azim Steppe. In the distant past, when all seemed doomed, a wayfaring soul came upon the steppe. Venturing into the northern crag, he received of Nama a sliver of her essence, a shard of the shining moon, and with it clove the tainted land from the earth. The end thus averted, to the fields did the wayfaring soul return, and venturing once more into the northern crag, he buried the shard, and made unto the heavens an offering of blood. This tale isn't meant to be taken literally, rather it's how the ancient inhabitants of the steppe processed what they saw, like a person from the Bronze Age trying to explain seeing an airplane. A wayfaring soul received a shard of the shining moon, and with it clove the tainted land from the earth. The shard refers to the artifact, and the tainted earth being the landmasses of now Azizla, which the ancients of the steppe would have seen rise into the sky and later move to the west. The soul ventured to the north once again and buried the shard, and made unto the heavens an offering of blood. What this is describing is most likely Dalamud. They activated the artifact again, and what would next rise into the sky was the red moon, their offering of blood to the heavens. Now for the reason why. The artifact stemmed the flow of Aether from the steppe to the burn. As Justola put it, this allowed them to untether Azizla from its surroundings. We don't get an explanation for this, but based on what we know of Aetherology, I do have an idea. The Aether of Etheirys flows through the world as part of a life stream, also known as ley lines, a river of energy snaking its way around the entire world, with many tributaries flowing back and forth from the main stream. The Allagan artifact can stem the flow of Aether, so it's most likely its placement wasn't by accident. Rather, it was driven into the earth above a ley line that flowed from the steppe into the burn. When the artifact was activated, it cut off this flow, resulting in the burn being cut off from the lifestream network, causing it to become a wasteland. This could explain why they chose this region. The burn is surrounded on all sides by mountain ranges and seas, meaning when its leyline connection was cut, it was entirely isolated. My theory is the Allagans did this as a safety precaution, for they planned to use the Aether of the land itself to power the raising of the land masses that would become Azizla. This process required a ton of energy, and it greatly weakened the region's etheric levels. However, after they raised Azizla and moved it to a place where the islands can float more easily, they returned to the artifact and deactivated it, allowing Aether to flow once more. Now for the second part. This is pure theory on my part, so take it with a Burnside's grain of salt. We've wondered for many years how Dalamud was raised into the sky, and just as big a mystery is where it was raised from. Given their experiences with Azizla, I believe they again returned to the region of the burn to construct and raise Dalamud. As Dalamud was constructed in this region, Bahamut was moved from Mericidia and placed within it during construction. When it was completed, they would use the same technology that levitated Azizla, but with an added effect of putting Dalamud into orbit. You already know of my love for Final Fantasy VIII, so this also got me thinking. They levitated Dalamud into the sky, then utilized ships like Heimdall's Last Sight to carry it the rest of the way into orbit. We see a similar launch in Final Fantasy VIII, utilizing 3 Ragnarok class ships. To perform this feat when they were ready, an Allagan again ventured into the Azim steppe and activated the artifact, which again cut off the flow of Aether, and Dalamud was then launched into the sky, but it was at a disastrous cost to the land itself. There are some theories that say that Dalamud was launched from the steppe itself, and that the Dawn Throne was once a launch platform for the Lesser Moon. A perfectly valid theory, but I find it most likely it was done from the burn itself, at a facility long since claimed by the Salted Sands. As we know, the Garian Empire would meet its end shortly after this with the Calamity of Earth, which had an epicenter in Eorzea but was felt across the world. At first, I thought this was the doom and end mentioned in the Zayla tales, but in researching this video I came up with another possibility. What if the doom the tale mentions was to do with one of the land masses being levitated, hence the words tainted land. Let's say they got them into the sky, but a malfunction meant one of them was about to fail and fall to the earth below. This would certainly be considered a calamity. It could also be the reason why every drop of Aether was drained from the land. They channeled everything into preventing its fall. Finally, we end this where it all began, the Garian Tale about the burn. In the process of researching everything about this region, the tale was always in the back of my mind. I guess that's why I made this connection after coming up with my theory about the doom. What if there was a grain of truth to the Garian Tale? The land being bred dry of Aether is certainly correct, but instead of repeated primal summonings, it was the process of repeated landmass levitations, ending with the launch of Dalamud. The Garian Tale would make perfect sense as a spin on the truth, all orchestrated by Emmett Selk for the Empire's expansion, which ultimately ties into the Ascians' plans. And that, my friends, is the Burn, the harshest region on Etheirys.